Boo! And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Tech Talk on this Halloween-themed day for AutoCAD Tricks and Treats. And we'll run from now until tentatively 1 o'clock. Thank you for joining us today. And, oh, by the way, happy Halloween. We'll run through a brief introduction. We'll do a brief demonstration and presentation, and as time allows at the end, we'll take question and answers. My name is Jason Smith, based out of the Cincinnati, Ohio area. I come from a background in the architectural industry where I've worked for over 20 years, mainly in the commercial sector. I am Autodesk certified. AutoCAD Tricks and Treats, we will dive into a variety of AutoCAD tips and tricks where you'll gain insight into valuable and unique AutoCAD best practices, including seldom used and enhanced commands, which will help to remedy repetitive tasks. We'll be using AutoCAD 2019 for today's class. Upon completion of this course, you'll be able to learn AutoCAD practices you may not have known existed, discover the best uses for less common AutoCAD commands, and learn to remedy repetitive tasks by using enhanced commands. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into the presentation and demonstration portion. The first thing we're going to talk about is the Dim Rotated tool, along with all of the other dimensioning options you have available, such as Dim Aligned. Dim Rotated is a slightly different version where it allows you to dimension an item along an angular degree where the elements of your line may not meet directly, but you want the extension line to come right off of that point. I'll switch to AutoCAD here and demonstrate. I already have these two dimensions here, and I'll delete those and recreate them. If I have a dimension that I create an aligned dimension from this corner here down to this lower corner there. When I do so, it's not necessarily aligned with that dashed yellow point, which is the dimension that I'm looking for. To create that dimension successfully, I would use the Dim Rotated tool, where you'll select the yellow line location first from endpoint to endpoint, and then the extension line points of your dimension, and then pull that away. And you'll notice that the dimension line comes right off this corner instead of at the yellow line, as well as the alternate corner up here. Clearly, there are two different dimensions between the aligned and dim rotated option, so you want to make sure that you're using the most applicable dimension possible to get the right information. Next is the Align tool, a very handy tool under the Modify tab. Modify panel, the Align tool looks like this, or AL is the shortcut command for that. It allows you to align objects along another reference plane, as well as being able to move, rotate, and scale any object within one command using the Align tool. Switch to AutoCAD here and demonstrate that. So I have this car block here with a rotated rectangle beside it. If I use the Align tool, again, AL is a shortcut for that, I'll select the car, right-click, specify my first point, such as this tire here, to the lower left corner of the rectangle. Then this upper tire here, and the lower right corner of the rectangle. And then click Continue. It asks me if I want to scale the object based on the alignment points, yes or no. If I say yes, it will reference those 2 points, aligning the car directly to those endpoints and scaling the object up to the reference points of each part of the rectangle. All of that in one command. Next is the Quick Select tool, which can be found anytime you right-click in the drafting window without any objects selected. You can choose Quick Select. You will go through a number of options to what you want to apply your quick selection to, whether it's the entire drawing or using this button here to select objects that you want to quick select from. Based on the objects you have selected, you can choose the object types based on a drop-down list here. Then under the properties list of all the objects you have selected, you can select similar properties from all those objects based on the property, what it's equal, does not equal, greater than or less than, or similar to a certain value, which will help you disseminate the selection process, whittling down exactly what you're looking for. You can also add the elements to your current selection or exclude the elements from your current selection, depending on what you want to filter out. Click OK to continue. Switch back to AutoCAD to demonstrate that. Right-click anywhere on your screen, and you'll find Quick Select right there. Opens up this dialog box. Again, choose Entire Drawing or a selection of objects. I'll just select all of my objects here and right-click. It says Object Types Multiple, or I can use a drop-down list to only choose the type of objects I want. I'll keep it on Multiple by color, and color that is equal, does not equal, greater than, less than, or selecting all. I'll just say equals by layer. So any color that is by layer, it's going to be selectable next. So click OK. And almost every object here is by layer except for this yellow line and this orange divide line. So based on that filter, I selected only those objects based on the settings I selected of the properties. Next is Select Similar. This works by selecting an object and then right-clicking and choosing Select Similar. You have to have an object selected for you to do this, and it should only be a single object or a single type of object. Select here, and I'll choose this white box right there, right-click, and Select Similar is available. Once I select Similar, it selects all lines that are similar types, such as polylines, color, line type, and line weight, and line scale, and line type. As long as the properties are consistent between all of these similar objects, they will be selected. If I select all of these yellow circles here, selecting one, right-click, select Similar, it selects all of the similar objects, which are continuous lines as circles, and it doesn't select any other objects. Selecting this car, select Similar, selects both of the cars because they're the same block. Dimension does not select the other dimension because they are different dimension types. So use Select Similar and see what types of different options you receive for the type of objects you're selecting. Next, and several more tips, is the burst command. Allows you to select a block with attributes and explode that block, but retain all of the attributes that are filled in, not returning them to their basic default attribute segment. InCopy is a command that allows you to copy line work from an XREF or other nested object into your current drawing. ID displays the current coordinate points throughout your drawing worksheet as you move your cursor around. Spell will enact a spell checking that allows you to spell check all of your text in your drawing or from a selected list of objects. Xclip allows you to trim a block's visible area using a boundary line that you create with a polyline or rectangle. Wipeout allows you to create a boundary line with lines that overlap another object, blocking out everything behind it. Let's look at each of those in turn. For this car here, I'll use the InCopy option. And it says select nested object to copy. I'll select this car and then select lines to copy. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a way to use the crossing selection or windowed selection with this. You have to select lines individually, which can make it tedious, but this allows you to copy any of the line work selected as a copy in your drawing directly from that object. Right-click, and then displace the objects you've selected. So I've just copied all of those lines from that car block directly into my drawing using InCopy. Spell will open up that spell checking tool, either allowing you to spell check the entire drawing, the current selection, or current space or layout. You can add words to the dictionary. Again, this will be the dictionary for your entire computer, and you can add as many new words as you want, especially dealing with discipline-specific words. There might be words that the dictionary would mark as incorrectly spelled, even though they're spelled right, because they are industry-specific words that you would not typically use. And you can add those to your dictionary so they don't come out as being misspelled each time. Wipeout is a tool that allows you to type wipeout, and you can create a frame or a polyline. If I create polyline, oops, sorry, I forgot I had to create the polyline first. So let me create a closed polyline here. Again, it has to be a closed polyline. Type wipeout, choose polyline, and then select this closed polyline here. You can erase or not erase the polyline. If I click yes, it turns that wipeout on, again blocking out any object behind. If you just want to mask part of the object out, you can do so. You can also select wipeout and select frames and turn frames on and off, or they will not be displayed when plotted as an option. So also, if I say off right now, it turns the wipeout frame off even though the wipeout still exists. Again, masking out part of that object. If I copy this vehicle multiple times, cut this element out, and then paste it back in as a block, up here, I can use the X-clip tool to select that block. And I can generate a polyline or create a new boundary. I'm going to say new boundary of a rectangle, and just draw a rectangle around this area here. And that will mask out part of the block itself. So the block still exists, but I'm just masking part of it out using X-clip. Next is change space. This tool allows you to select an object through a viewport and push it from the model space to the paper space area in the exact same scale relationship that is shown in the viewport. So for instance, if you accidentally drew something in your paper space, you could push it through to model space, or vice versa. If you drew something accidentally in model space and you want it to be in paper space, you could push it directly into paper space. So I'll double click on this viewport here and select this car per se, and then type change space. And now as I zoom out, I can see that that car is no longer in my model space. I pushed it out through the viewport into paper space, which also deletes it from the model space area. So if you want to take something from model space, putting it into paper space at the same exact scale, change space is the way to go. Next, a few text options. Selecting any annotative text or any text and making it annotative, you can also then select to match orientation to layout in the properties of that text object. Another tool which is similar, called T-Orient, allows you to align all selected annotation text to a specific angle. An angle that you type in or a default angle. Also, if you want to turn single line text into InText, a tool called Text to InText allows you to do just that. Select multiple lines of single line text. It will force it to a single line of multi-line text together with all of the bells and whistles that multi-line text has available. Look at each of those here. This text right here, if I select just one of those pieces of text, go to its properties, making sure it's set to annotative, and find another parameter called match orientation to layout. Set to no currently. If I say yes, now it orients it to be horizontal in this view. Then T-Orient, another command. Select all of the pieces of text I want to use, right-click, and say either most readable or type in your own angle. So if I say 0, it forces all of the angles to be 0. Next is the TXT, the number 2, MTXT, text to InText. Allows me to select multiple single line text elements and then pushes it together into a single multi-line text object. Again, allowing me to control the multi-line text just as I normally would. Double click and you have all of your edit options, formatting, and so on. Next is the Shift key, which can be your best friend in AutoCAD. It does a lot of functions that you may want to use if you're not using them already. When selecting objects, you can shift and hit the right-click button to change your O-snaps or your object snaps to a selection from this drop-down list. It will turn off all of the other object snaps except for the one that you currently select until you select your object next, and then it will turn all the O-snaps back on. Also, when using any orientation or modification tools, you can hold down the Shift key and it will act as a temporary ortho mode. Instead of turning ortho lock on, you can hold down the Shift key and it will act as an ortho mode anytime you want to use that instead. When you have a number of objects selected, you can hold down the Shift key and left click on them to deselect them by a single selection or crossing or windowed selection. Inside of the chamfer or fillet command, the Shift key, while holding it down, will invert the command to be either the chamfer or the fillet command, depending on which one you're not in. They will work interchangeably. The same with the trim and extend command. Whichever one that you're in, it will holding them, the Shift key will invert the command to the opposite command version, since they're very similar. Let's take a look at some of those features here. If I start a line tool, start my point here, and I have all of my O-snaps already turned on. If I shift and right click, I have this drop-down list of all of the available object snaps. If I select midpoint, only midpoint is available at this time until I select my next point. Then it turns on all of the other O-snaps as default. You can do that as many times as you want for each command over and over again. If I start the extend command, selecting all objects, and extend this line out, I can hold down the Shift key and it'll act as the trim command within the same object. Again, the ortho lock as well. If I start a new line, and currently my ortho is unlocked and I can move my cursor around wherever I want to, draw in any angled lines. If I hold down the Shift key, it acts again as an ortho lock and I can begin to only draw in orthographic directions. Ortho lock is currently not on. I'm just holding down the Shift key the whole time. If I release the Shift key, I can then again draft in any angle. Next, we have a number of layer tools that you want to be familiar with. The first one is called Layer Walk. Under the Layers panel drop-down list, Layer Walk looks like this. Looks like a couple sheets of paper with some feet next to it. Allows you to select from a drop-down list of, actually a window of all of the layers in your drawing. You can cycle through each of those layers one at a time, and it will only show the objects on that layer or any number of layers selected. Let's look at that here. Layer drop-down list, Layer Walk tool, opens this dialog box. I don't have many layers, but each one has different objects on each layer. As I cycle through each layer, it'll only show the objects on those layers. If I select a group of layers, layers 1 through 5, it only shows those objects and nothing else. If I click close without saying restore on exit, checked, click close, it will tell me that I'm changing the states of some of these layers. If I want to cancel that, I can, or if I click continue, it will keep the layers as my current selection right now. Again, making some of them have been turned off. Next is the Layer State tool from the Layer Properties Manager. The Layer State Manager is in the upper left corner, or Alt-S. Turns that on as well. Clicking that, I can select a new layer state, and I'll call this one just current. And click OK. And then click close. Now I'll select all of my layers and turn them on. Change the color of all of my layers to magenta. The line types of all of them to be border. And then close. Now I've irrevocably changed all of my layers in a way that I can't easily change them back without going individually through each layer, setting it individually to the correct style. Or I can go back to the Layer Manager, select the current layer state that I created, and choose Restore. This will bring back all of the colors, line types, and settings for how the layers looked previously. Then I can go back and select all of my layers and make sure they're on. And now they're back to the way they looked before. You can freeze individual layers inside of an individual viewport one at a time, allowing you to have more graphical control within your drawing. If I go to a viewport here, zoom out, select maybe this layer right here, layer 2 with these yellow lines, select that drop-down list, and I have 3 options here: turn on or off completely, or freeze and thaw in all viewports, or freeze and thaw in current viewport only. If I click this one to freeze that viewport only, it hides the layer for the yellow line work. You could do the same thing for the blue line work, which hides that as well. If I go back to my model space, those lines are still turned on. I haven't changed all of the drawing options, only those for this single viewport. I could add multiple viewports with different view options as long as I'm editing the VP freeze command. Again, that only affects the freezing of the objects inside of the viewport and only when that viewport is active. And to change that back, simply select those layers and turn them back on. You can also select all of your layers in the layer dialog box. Selecting Control A selects all of your layers. Then use Control C to copy the layer content to your clipboard, and you can paste that information into an Excel file or other similar file types using Control V. If for some reason you need an output of your layer information in some form, you can do so. Go back to AutoCAD. Layer Properties Manager, select All, and Control C. Go to an Excel file, and then Control V will paste all of the information available from those layers. Name of the layer, layer states and their current status, colors, line types, and so on. If you want to save that for some reason, you can. Would be a good way to make a company line type and layer manager so that everyone knows what layers content should be drawn on, things like that. Next, you can create saved views that you can bring back in either a multiple view panel in your model space, or you can create viewports with those named views created as well. If I zoom in on this area here, delete the wipeout, making sure that only the car is visible in my current view. Go to the View tab, Named Views panel, create new view, and call this Car. If I zoom out, I can use the Name Views drop-down list panel and choose Car as an option, and it goes right back to that same view. Zoom out again, use the View tab Model Viewports panel to change the viewport configuration to multiple viewports, and I can do the same thing. Have one viewport named Car. Another one, I can modify the viewport controls, allowing me to change the view controls to an isometric view in different directions, different visual display styles. If you're using three-dimensional elements or massing elements, you can change the display characteristics of them. Or you can orbit your view in any way you want. Again, you always have the option to go back to a named view that you've created before. I can do that with every one of these views. Or turn back on just a single view, and I still have the zoom extents and all the elements there. If I switch to a layout view and create a new viewport from the Layout tab, Layout Viewports lower right corner, this area here, Allows me to create new viewports with single, double, triple, or quadruple viewport options. If I create a single viewport and change the view type to that car viewport I create, or car view location, select OK, and then create a viewport, it zooms in directly to that car object that I saved previously. So you can create as many of those views as you want, going to different portions of your drawing, saving them for recall later. Again, I mentioned a little bit, the in-canvas view control options are available in the individual model space viewport split, or in a viewport itself in the model space or in the paper space area. Double-clicking on a viewport will always bring up this in-canvas view control, where you can change the orientation or location of your view in any way. Also bring up the same view manager, creating new views from the current view status. Zoom in here. View manager, create new view, call this circles. And now I can either switch between the custom model views of car or circles, and as many of those as I want to create. Next, a few more options. One is sketch. It's actually a command that allows you to create a freehand sketch line work in your drawing. It's a continuous line that you can create just moving your mouse around. Just type sketch, type of line, increment of distance, and tolerance if you want to change that, and just start sketching your line work around. Again, complete your freehand. Once completed, the line is actually individual increments of line work that you can then join together using any of the polyline edit tools. And the type option also allows you to choose a polyline or a spline option instead of lines. Which will join it together into a single line. The next tool is called time. Just type the word time and it will give you a list of the intervals of time in the command line for the current time, day of the week, date, time of day, the times for the drawing, when it was first created, when it was last updated, the total editing time that the drawing has been worked on, an elapsed timer that continues to count, and the time when the next autosave is supposed to take place. If you want to use that for document tracking processes or timesheet or other tools like that, you can use this time feature to collect out statistics. You can also reset the time to the current date and time as well, starting over again. Next is the Save All and Close All tools. Again, you have the same option from the tabs for each document open, where you can right-click and say Save All, which will save all of the open drawings that you have in AutoCAD in the same session. The command Save All does the same thing. Also, Close All is available when you right-click on the tabs. In the tab line, will close all of the drawings in your current document. Very handy if you have a large number of drawings currently opened and you're leaving for the day or you're ready to close down. One command will take care of all of that. Next is Menu Bar, which allows you to toggle the older style menu that has the File menu turned on above the ribbon tabs. Or you can turn it off, which takes it back to the application menu. Switch to AutoCAD here. So you can currently see how the application menu is there. And then you have Home, Insert, and so on. Type Menu Bar. Set that from 0 to 1, and it turns on the File menu above the ribbon. You still have the application menu, but the File menu has now been added back to AutoCAD. If for some reason you want to bring that back, or you miss it, or you just want to use it that way, that's fine. That's an option for you. Menu Bar as option 0 or 1. Turning that on and off. Next, an InText tool that allows you to convert lowercase text to uppercase text or vice versa. If you have text that is already generated as InText, you can select whichever text you want to modify, right-click, choose Change Case, and then choose upper or lowercase. We'll switch all of the text in that form. Another tool called Image Clip allows you to crop an image file inside of your drawing. That has already been inserted. Classic XREF is a tool that will turn on the old style of XREF Manager instead of the palette window. We'll turn on the XREF Manager window instead. And then Set by Layer is a tool that will take any object selected and change all their properties from any custom property types such as line work, line style, and line weight, and set them all to be by layer. Go back to this text here, double click on it. I'll just select the non-bolded text, right click, choose Change Case, and then choose uppercase. Again, you can change it back, selecting any part of the text, change case, and change it back to lowercase. I believe that's a feature that was in AutoCAD before it was available in Microsoft Word, and I remember having to use this feature previously by copying and pasting text out of a Word document into AutoCAD just so I could make all the text capitalized before that tool was inserted into Microsoft Word as well. So it's a handy tool. It's been around for a while. Next is the image crop. So let me load an image into my file first. Say of this cat. Well, that looks terrible. Let me try something else. There we go. So I have this hand right here. Image clip is the tool. Select an image you want to clip, and then create a new boundary in the form of a rectangle, and it crops down the image to only that portion that you have selected. You can continue to invert the cropping area or change the size of that box as well. The rest of the picture is still there, it's just cropped and not showing as much. The next one is the classic XREF tool, which will open the XREF manager instead of the XREF palette. Classic XREF opens again the XREF manager where you can attach documents as needed. No, there it is. And of course, XREF also brings up the original or the new style of the XREF palette with the same options. Someone asked about the image clip. If you type the image clip tool again, you can select the clip and delete the boundary, and it brings everything back the way it was. Or if you want to retain the boundary, image clip and turn off the boundary works as well. And lastly, set by layer tool. I have this group of vectored line work here. Again, its properties are set to a color, line weight, and line style. Set by layer, choose that object, and hit enter. Change by block by layer as well is an option. Include blocks if they are part of your selection. You can do that as well. And it sets everything to be by layer. Lastly, we're going to talk about submission tools that help you get the objects of your submission out the door. First, we'll look at the Page Setup Manager. If you're not using this already, it is a very helpful tool that allows you to save all of your page settings so that you don't have to recreate them each time you go to print your document. From a layout, select the tab and right-click, go to Page Setup Manager. You can create as many page setups as you want, modifying existing ones, importing from other documents, or creating new ones. Click New, give it a name. I'll just call this New for right now. Choose the plotter that you're going to use. It has to be a plotter installed on your computer or network or a PDF writer, which is what I typically use. Choose what to plot, whether it's centered or from a corner. Change the scale factor. Plot style table if you use it. Quality, coloring, plot options, orientation of your drawing, preview your drawing to make sure it looks correct, and then click OK. And that page setup is stored for later purposes. If you have a number of layouts, each one can be different. Selecting all of the layouts at once, you can publish selected layouts as well. Choosing Publish, it will open up this Publish dialog box. Since you have a page setup created, you can choose that page setup for each one of the pages that the layout applies to. If any of them are different, if you have a mix of 8.5 by 11, 11 by 17, 30 by 42 sheets, you can create a page setup for each one. Publishing your document will print all of your documents using the correct page setup for each sheet. That way you don't have to go to each view, each layout of each drawing to create a page printed for each publishing submission. You can do that with one click. Save this entire project for later, and it's stored each time you need to create a new submission. You can publish to PDF, DWFX, and DWF. Or whatever print plotter is set up for your page setup. So after you create your page setup, you can then go to the Publishing Manager, print all of your documents in one form or another. Someone asked what a DWF is. A DWF is similar to a PDF, but not as easily readable or readable in multiple tools. A DWF is especially useful when sending them to consultants or clients that use what's called the Design Manager. What is the exact name of that? The AutoCAD Design Review tool uses DWF files that allow you to mark up the files and send them back to the drafter or consultant, and that drafter can then import the DWF over top of their AutoCAD file. You can change the name of the page setup at any time. Someone asked that question as well. By going back to the Page Setup Manager, selecting it and modify. Double click on the page setup name and it will give you that option. It has to be a newly created saved page setup. The default ones with the asterisk next to them are not page setups that can be modified by name, just those that you create new. If you want to send all of your documentation to a client or consultant, you can package your entire project up and send them to your client in the most efficient way possible, which is called eTransmit. This is a tool found in the application menu, Publish Flyout window, eTransmit, which allows you to save all of your documentation for your current drawing file, which will include any XREFs, support files, font files, CTB files, any other contributing files that make up that file in the way it looks exactly on your computer, that you can send it directly to your client and they can open up your own drawing on their computer, and you are assured that it will look the same way as it does on your computer because they have all of these supporting files. Once you create the eTransmit, it will create and package all of those files into a zip file that you can then send to the client. It will also include a transmittal document in the form of a text file that includes all of the information from that project DWG file so that the client knows what type of information that they received. So if I go to this document here, application menu, publish, eTransmit, it will ask you to save your drawing first and then giving you a list of all of the information that are going to be included in that document. It gives you the name of your file, images, CTB files, external files that are included. You can see a file table here in a different format. Under the transmittal option, you can modify what the transmittal is showing, information about the transmittal, description to be added into the transmittal. You can add extra files into this eTransmittal as well. So if you have a whole project with multiple DWG files, you can include those as well. You can view a report. This is what the eTransmit would look like with all of the information included. Click OK, and it will store all of that document content into a zip file. Sending that zip file to the client will give them all of that information. Be very careful with zip files, however, because many email clients will block a zip file thinking that it's a virus. So you may want to send the zip file from a peer-to-peer sharing source or a website location that they can download it from directly, or use Dropbox or some format like that, because email will most likely block a zip file for most people. Okay. Well, I'd like to thank everyone very much for your time and attention today. Thank you, and have a great Halloween and a great rest of your lunch. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.